The invisible invaders meet an unseen threat. The silent warships hovered in the void of space, unseen by any eyes, organic or artificial. Their hulls, crafted from spectral alloy, bent light around them, making them imperceptible to both radar and visual scanning. This was the pinnacle of Kaleran stealth technology, perfected over millennia. It had been their ultimate advantage in war. And yet, something was wrong. Commander Vrix of the Kaleran Shadow Fleet leaned forward, his black eyes narrowing at the live data stream from their cloaked vessel. "Report," he commanded, his voice a quiet rasp. The crew, a collection of insectoid and reptilian beings, shuffled uneasily in their seats. The technician, a wiry Kaleran with luminescent tendrils running along his forearms, hesitated before answering. "Commander, the Terran vessel is..." "Spit it out." "It's tracking us." A long, uncomfortable silence filled the command bridge. Vrix felt an unfamiliar sensation creep along his chitinous spine, something that his kind rarely experienced. Doubt. Impossible. His clawed fingers twitched against the cold metal of his command chair. "Our stealth technology is absolute. They cannot see us." The technician gulped. "And yet, the humans are moving directly toward us." The crew fell into a stunned silence as they watched the Terran ship, a vessel significantly smaller than their behemoth-class cruiser, adjusting its course precisely toward their position, as if their perfect cloak meant nothing at all. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a guess. The humans knew. "Are they scanning us?" Vrix asked, trying to rationalize the impossible. "No, Commander. No active scans, no transmissions, nothing. They simply see us." Vrix's mandibles clicked together anxiously. That was not how war was supposed to work. The Kaleran had fought and conquered dozens of species. None of them had ever pierced their stealth before. This was not how first contact with the Terrans was supposed to go. 6 hours earlier, aboard the UES Valkyrie, Lieutenant Elias Work leaned back in his chair, a cocky grin spreading across his face as he observed the seemingly empty patch of space ahead of them. "Boys, we got ourselves a guest." The other officers looked up from their stations. "Confirmed," one of them asked. Elias stretched his arms with an exaggerated yawn. "Oh, they're there. Just sitting nice and pretty, thinking they're ghosts." Commander Naomi Carter, standing beside him, gave him a flat look. "I assume you have evidence to back this up." Elias tapped the side of his head with 2 fingers. "Oh, I do." He turned to the tactical display, where the void of space appeared empty. He pressed a few buttons, filtering out traditional sensor readings. Then he activated his own enhancement. The screen flickered, and suddenly, there they were. A massive alien warship, perfectly cloaked to normal instruments, was now outlined in a faint ghostly glow on their screen. A ripple of tension spread across the bridge. "How?" Naomi breathed, staring at the impossible sight. Elias smirked. "I see things other people don't." The secret behind the human eyes. Decades ago, humanity had suffered one of its greatest biowarfare attacks at the hands of an unknown alien faction. The pathogen had left millions blind. Desperate, human scientists developed synthetic neural implants to restore sight. But as they perfected the technology, they discovered something unexpected. The implants didn't just restore normal vision. They enhanced it. Beyond the visible spectrum, beyond illusions. What began as a medical breakthrough had accidentally turned into humanity's greatest military advantage, one that no alien had ever anticipated. By the time the galactic community became aware of Project Paragon, it was already too late. Humans were looking straight through their greatest secrets. Back on the UES Valkyrie, Commander Carter exhaled, eyes locked onto the screen. "So you're telling me they're sitting out there thinking they're invisible?" Elias spun in his chair, like a kid hiding under the covers, hoping the monster won't see them. "Can we get a weapons lock?" Elias checked his readings. "If we wanted to, We could vaporize them before they even realized they were compromised. A murmur ran through the bridge crew. Naomi considered her options carefully. Humanity had spent centuries being the underdog in the galaxy. But today was different. She straightened her posture. Let's give them a reason to sweat. Elias grinned. Oh, I like where this is going. Aboard the Kaleran warship. Panic spread through the Kaleran crew as the human vessel's weapon systems began subtly shifting, aiming directly at them. They shouldn't be able to do that, Vrix whispered, his hands clenched into fists. And then, a transmission appeared on their screens. A human woman, dressed in military uniform, stared at them with piercing eyes. She shouldn't have been able to know where they were, and yet she was looking right at him. Her voice was calm, confident, and utterly terrifying. Peekaboo. Vrix froze. For the first time in his life, the hunter realized that he was the prey. The hunters become the hunted. Vrix's exoskeletal fingers twitched over the control panel, his mind racing. This was impossible. The Kaleran Shadow Fleet had never been detected before. Their stealth technology had dominated every battlefield, ensured total superiority over countless species, and yet, here were the humans, staring right at them. Shut off the transmission, he barked. His crew scrambled, mandibles clicking in panic. The technician with luminescent tendrils slammed his claws against the controls. Sir, I can't. What do you mean you can't? Vrix hissed, his tail lashing behind him. They've locked onto our systems. The human woman on screen, Commander Naomi Carter, folded her arms across her chest. Behind her stood another human, wearing a lazy smirk, tapping against a control pad with a cocky rhythm. You're probably thinking, this isn't possible, right? Carter said smoothly. That you're the ones who watch while others stumble around in the dark. Her eyes gleamed with a predatory intelligence. Well, guess what? She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. Now you're the ones being watched. A cold weight settled in Vrix's stomach. This is a deception, one of his officers stammered, his plated fingers tightening around the armrests of his chair. A bluff. But it wasn't. They all knew it wasn't. The humans could see them. And worse, they weren't afraid. Aboard the UES Valkyrie, the war begins before the first shot. Elias Work grinned as he watched the Kaleran vessel squirm. He could practically feel the panic radiating from their ship. He leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms. You ever watch a cat toy with a bug before it eats it? He asked, smirking. Walker, the ship's tactical officer, chuckled. You're enjoying this way too much. Elias shrugged. Hey, let's be real. This is history in the making. First time, an invisible species meets humans and realizes. He made a small explosion gesture with his fingers. Boom. Game over. Commander Carter, however, was calculating. Her lips pressed together in thought as she studied the alien warship. She knew how military doctrine worked in the wider galaxy. For many species, first contact was a test of strength. If the humans showed weakness, they would be prey. And Carter had no intention of letting humanity be anyone's prey. She turned to her weapons officer. Target their engines. Elias raised a brow. You sure about that? We could end them right now. Carter's gaze was steel. They need to understand something. Aboard the Kaleran warship, the moment of realization. A dull alarm pulsed through the ship as the lights flickered. The weapons systems were down. Vrix froze. His mandibles clacked together in shock. How? How did they? One of his engineers turned toward him, his bioluminescent tendrils pulsing erratically with stress signals. Sir, the humans, they've bypassed our security protocols. What? They shut down our main reactor targeting systems in under 12 seconds. Vrix's claws dug into the armrests of his command chair. 12 seconds. The Kaleran Shadow Fleet had spent centuries perfecting cyber warfare defenses, barriers that had taken entire empires decades to crack. and the humans had waltzed in and ripped them apart in seconds. Impossible. Or rather, it should have been impossible. Vrix's mind reeled. Had they underestimated humanity so badly? A new message flashed across their screens. It was text only. Simple, but chilling. We see you. The laws of the jungle have changed. Commander Carter watched the silent Kilaran vessel falter. The fact that they hadn't fired back spoke volumes. They're hesitating, Walker noted. Of course they are, Elias said. They just got their whole philosophy ripped to shreds in real time. Give them a minute. Carter turned toward him. We don't have a minute. She stepped forward, her voice clear and commanding. Open a comm line. A moment later, the alien commander's image flickered onto the screen. Vrix looked less like a warrior now, his posture tense, his claws gripping the edges of his chair so hard that the metal beneath them had begun to bend. Let me make something clear, Carter said. We don't start fights, but we end them. She leaned forward. Your technology. It's not special anymore. Silence. Then, for the first time in his life, Vrix did something no Kilaran commander had ever done before. He raised his hands in a universal gesture of surrender. When the predator realizes it's prey. For the first time in his long career, Commander Vrix felt powerless. His species had always been the ones lurking in the darkness, watching. They had spent generations mastering the art of unseen warfare, striking from the void and disappearing before their enemies even knew they had been attacked. Yet here they were, exposed, their once impervious stealth now meaningless against the humans. And the worst part, the humans knew it. On the view screen, the human commander, Naomi Carter, remained eerily calm, her eyes locked onto his with the intensity of a predator who had already won the fight. Vrix's mandibles twitched as he struggled to process this impossible situation. His elite warship was powerless. His weapons were disabled. His crew sat frozen, awaiting his next command. But what could he say? Retreat. Attack. Nothing made sense anymore. The humans weren't just beating them. They were humiliating them. Aboard the UES Valkyrie, the art of psychological warfare. Elias Work grinned as he studied the raw panic in the Kilaran commander's expression. Oh, he's breaking, Elias muttered, arms crossed as he leaned against his console. You see it. That little twitch in his mandibles. The way his claws keep flexing like he's trying to grab onto anything familiar. Walker chuckled. Yeah. He looks like someone just told him gravity doesn't exist. Commander Carter, however, wasn't celebrating just yet. She had spent years studying alien war doctrine. Most species followed one of two paths when cornered. They surrendered. They lashed out in desperation. Carter wasn't going to assume the Kilarans would stay frozen in fear. Cornered predators were still dangerous. Keep our weapons online, she ordered, but do not fire unless they make a move. Elias raised an eyebrow. You think they might try something? Carter's jaw tightened. They're afraid. That makes them unpredictable. Aboard the Kilaran warship, the breaking point, Vrix forced himself to think. He was a commander of the Kilaran Shadow Fleet. His people had never lost a war. Surely there had to be a way out. His gaze flicked toward his tactical officer. Do we have any operational weapons? The technician hesitated, then shook his head. No, Commander. The humans disabled our targeting systems. Even if we fired blindly, we wouldn't be able to hit anything. Vrix cursed. Their stealth technology was useless. Their weapons were dead. But there was one thing left. Something even the humans wouldn't expect. His fingers danced across the controls. If we can't win, we'll make sure they don't either. He turned to his crew. Prepare the ship for a suicide charge. Aboard the UES Valkyrie, humans never miss a trick. A blaring alarm filled the bridge of the Valkyrie. Walker's eyes widened. Commander, the Kilaran ship just powered up their thrusters. They're gonna ram us, Elias finished, his voice sharp. Carter expected this. She had been watching Vrix closely. She had seen the moment his mind snapped. But here was the difference between humans and every other species in the galaxy. Humans didn't just see through deception. They thought 3 moves ahead. "Fire the graviton tether," Carter commanded. The crew acted instantly. A pulse of invisible energy lanced out from the Valkyrie. Within seconds, the Kaleran warship froze in place, caught in an artificial gravity field. Vrix's plan had failed before it even began. On the view screen, his eyes widened in shock. Carter tilted her head. "Really? A suicide charge? That's the best you've got." She sighed, shaking her head. "You're not impressing me, Commander." Vrix couldn't move. He had been outmaneuvered at every turn. His weapons? Disabled. His stealth? Meaningless. His last-ditch attack? Foiled before it even started. He had nothing left. He had never felt more vulnerable in his life. And then the human sent one final message. The view screen flickered. This time, there was no human face. Just a simple, chilling phrase. "Well, see you to the new reality." The new reality. Surrender or extinction. For the first time in thousands of years, a Kaleran warship sat completely powerless in the vast expanse of space. Commander Vrix could feel the weight of it pressing against his exoskeleton. The sheer impossibility of what had just happened. Their entire philosophy of war had been built upon one absolute truth. The unseen cannot be defeated. And yet here they were. Seen. Trapped. Helpless. Vrix's mandibles trembled as he stared at the words still lingering on the display. "Well, see you to the new reality." He knew, without a doubt, what that meant. This was not an isolated battle. This was a paradigm shift. Aboard the UES Valkyrie, delivering the final blow, Commander Naomi Carter studied the silence coming from the Kaleran warship. The enemy commander, Vrix, had gone quiet. Elias Work smirked from his console. "They're processing, boss." Walker chuckled. "Yeah, I think we just broke their entire worldview." But Carter wasn't celebrating yet. The most dangerous moment in a fight wasn't when the enemy was attacking. It was when they had nothing left to lose. Her fingers hovered over the control panel. "Monitor their energy levels. If they so much as twitch, I want to know." Elias leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head. "They've got nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. What do you think they'll do?" Carter exhaled. "That's the problem." She tapped a button, opening a direct transmission to the Kaleran warship. Vrix's tired, defeated face appeared on screen. She spoke with cold precision. "You have 2 options, Commander." Vrix's mandibles twitched. "You." Carter cut him off. "1. You surrender and your people live. We have no intention of wiping you out." A long silence. Vrix's black eyes narrowed. "And the second?" Carter's expression hardened. "You refuse, and we destroy your entire way of war. Not just your ship, not just your fleet." She leaned forward. "We eliminate the very concept of Kaleran stealth warfare from the galaxy." Vrix stiffened. "If you fight, we will expose every cloaked fleet you have, every hidden base, every secret operation. We see you now, Commander. And the moment the galaxy realizes your invisible fleet is nothing but a myth, your empire will collapse." Silence. Elias whistled low under his breath. "Damn, boss. That's brutal." Carter didn't blink. "It's the truth." And Vrix knew it. For the Kalerans, stealth wasn't just a tactic, it was their entire identity. If the rest of the galactic community learned that humans could see through it, their species wouldn't just lose this war. They would lose everything. His claws tightened against the armrests of his chair. There was only one way out. Aboard the Kaleran warship, the death of a philosophy. Vrix turned to his crew. They were watching him, waiting for his command. Generations of Kalerans have been raised to believe in the absolute power of the unseen. That belief had shaped their empire, made them untouchable. And now, Now they were staring at undeniable proof that everything they had ever known was a lie. He closed his black, inhuman eyes and inhaled deeply. He had spent his life believing they were predators. But today, they had learned the truth. They were the prey. Slowly, with trembling claws, he reached for the control panel. One simple gesture, a signal of surrender. The entire Calaran war doctrine, crushed in a single moment. Aboard the UES Valkyrie, the war that never began. Elias blinked as the screen lit up with a Calaran distress signal. Wait. He sat up. Is that what I think it is? Walker grinned. Oh yeah. The words flashed across the Valkyrie's display. All SOISTM's OFA line. We surrender. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Carter remained calm, her eyes still locked onto the display. She exhaled, allowing herself a small nod. Stand down. No further hostilities. Elias chuckled. Boss, I think you just ended a war before it even started. Carter's lips twitched into the faintest hint of a smile. Maybe, she murmured. But this wasn't just about winning. She turned back toward the view screen. This was about changing the game forever.